just in case. Oh,
And I'm going to click on, so I'm going to click on the AI companion to see if that works. Because it's lovely when I do
hold
get a
on.
summary that I can post along with the talk.
You and David with your AI.
Okay. We are now recording. Um, okay, so apologies again to everyone for the change in the program. The rearrangement, I should say. It's just that Ray has very kindly agreed to come early to cover for Suzanne, who is going to be coming, we hope, in November. And I've asked Ray, as I thought it was particularly appropriate that he should do this because he's clerk of our meeting. And I think I should say clerk to the meeting, is that right? And and also, of course, Ray is probably my oldest friend in our meeting. So I just like the idea of starting off with asking Ray to talk about why he is a Quaker. So, Ray, over to you.
Righto then. This is going to be, I suppose, why, but some reasons or reminiscences of because I've been a Quaker now for 50 years. 50 years. It surprises me sometimes about that I have been occasionally on the edge of saying, that's it, I'm leaving. If any manage it now, and I'm going to go off in a huff. Or as Groucho Marx once said, don't go off in a huff, go off in a minute and a half. Terrible, terrible. But as anybody knows, I am, bad jokes are my thing, If when I start something, my brother will look at me and go, no. But there you go, that's me. But to start off with, I suppose it's how I started, how I became a Quaker. Many of you will know the story of my first Quaker, non-Quaker experience, really, which started me going and that type of thing was, if you can imagine this chap who's sitting in front of you now with less hair and a lot more weight, this very thin hippie who had very long hair down to the middle of his back, a patchy band, a caftan, and all this type of stuff. A caftan, very bright caftan. Sitting in a Anglican church one morning because I thought I would like something a bit more spiritual to be in my life, really. And the church service finished, and I was sitting there contemplating, and a young lady in a very nice Laura Ashley type dress, and her fella in a very made to measure suit came and stood beside me. And the woman said hello, and I said hello, and she said, do you think this is the place for you? And I looked at her and smiled and said, apparently not, and got up and left. And the next Sunday, I'd been walking past West Ham Quaker Meeting House and didn't know what it was. What happens there? Who are these Quakery people? Like everybody else, I thought, the picture on Porridge Oats, that was Quakers. So went in the door, and a little old lady was standing by the door and said, hello there. And I said, hello. She said, have you been here before? And of course, the usual expression which we give to all new people. And so I was given a couple of leaflets and sat inside the meeting house. And after meeting, people shook hands even. And the same little old lady came up to me with a cup of tea and a biscuit and looked at me, had a beaming look on her face. She said, "You look very colourful, dear." Oh, thank you very much. And we chatted about those other things. And she introduced me to a couple of other people. And I've never stopped in that time, because it was a formative experience, something which I could actually feel that the people there were interested in me, not interested in my clothes or something like that, but interested in the actual me. And so I used to go most weeks, with the exception of some weeks I was off with my fellow hippies, going and doing things and demonstrating and doing all those other things which youth did in that time. So that was me. Quakers were different because they weren't the sort of people who I went to, sort of churches I went got dragged occasionally to by my mother in the times when she thought that we needed this serious, kind of religious stuff. As she said that she had to do it when she was a child, and why shouldn't we suffer as well? Which I thought was amusing. She meant it as a joke more than anything else, because she understood that type of thing, But my father, who was a very, very committed, strong communist, and believed in that statement that religion was the opium of the people, and so therefore, he was very strong against anything like that. And I'd have dearly loved to have debated this idea with him when I became a Quaker. But unfortunately, he died when I was 19, so he died before I started to become a Quaker, which was sad, really, because I'd have loved to have had words with him about it as an adult. But then again, I ramble. I've been a Quaker for many meetings, London, Warwick, Sussex, Gloucester, and a couple of others, and then coming to Bristol, which was different. I started at Redland, and then in a meeting in Redland, after a meeting in Redland, there was a notice which said that central meeting had only a very few members, and they would encourage people from other meetings to go and support central, which is what I did. And I've been there for quite a time now, and it is a meeting which I enjoy. It's a meeting which has various groups, lots of groups of different people, who have given me enormous pleasure over the years to be part of with them. One being a chap called David Jack, who has died now, but David was a character in his own right and had no kind of off button, really, because, unfortunately, occasionally we used to have to rescue newcomers from David because he could go on and on and on. And his main subject was bees. He was a keeper of bees and had 5 hives. And would talk about them ad nauseum. So, but it's a lovely man, you know, and he said that once when we had the Quaker tapestry came to Bristol, and it was displayed at Central Meeting House, and someone had to be there all the time to kind of look after it. So he slept on the floor of Quaker Meeting House while the Quaker tapestry was there, which I thought was, yeah, a very Quakerly thing to do. You know, so not just lock the doors and go away. You know, you have to protect this thing. You know, it's part of, you know, the Quaker thing. There you go. That was one of them. You know, I said I've been to many meetings, and there are lots of area meetings within Gloucester area. It was delightful because we used to go to area meeting at very small meetings which were around, you know, small like Painswick, which had about 5 people. But having an area meeting there was amazing because Painswick is on a hill and you could see lots of Gloucester, and it was amazing, and lots of rather strong Quakers who lived there and kept the meeting. Once, when I was going to visit friends, I went to one of the Yorkshire meetings. And this one I went to was quite remarkable in its sense because it was virtually run by the warden there, who was a lady formula double, as the French would say. And she seemed to control the meeting. It wasn't the clerk or the elders and that sort of thing, you know. So I was told she came in when there's just about to start the meeting. That is about 15 minutes before the start of the meeting, and said in a very grumpy voice, "You've only got half an hour today because I have to go out." And the one of them, we stood up and said, "Well, if you give us a key, we can let ourselves out." "Oh, I can't use a key. It's my key. Can't have it." And Quakers had to be quite firm with her. So I remember sitting there thinking, "Oh, what's going to go on here then?" I had to be quite firm with her, and the elders kind of had to stand up and say, you know, "No, this is a Quaker meeting. It goes on for an hour. You know, you obviously can't lock us in." And you know, and I thought that was part of the Quakerism, is not just going, "Well, all right then, we'll do it then," but it was the fact that this was a Quaker meeting, and they were the friends there were the strong people who said, "No, we do this there. You can't actually control us doing that type of thing. We're not." And that was, to me, was a part of, you know, this is how we value this. This is what we do. We're strong sometimes. It's kind of making a stand in that type of thing, you know. But also, we can be rather different in other ways, because once I was at I lived in Gloucester, so I went to a Gloucester meeting, which, and if you, I would recommend people to go to Gloucester meeting occasionally, because it's quite a remarkable little old meeting. It's been there for years, and you know, a very long time, and they still have the old benches, which they have to repair occasionally, you know, and that type of thing. Rather in the way of most of you, I think, have been to French A meeting, which is Judith's meeting, as she says there. But there, Judy, you still have the old benches, don't you, in the meeting house? Yeah. And this was part of that whole thing. And but once they had to do major work on uh, Gloucester Meeting House, and so area meeting was there, and they decided this, and this, and nearly at a nod, they spent £25,000 in development work, and then spent the next nearly 2 hours discussing the curtains and what colour they should be. And this is the kind of things which makes me love Quakers in that way. It's kind of, that money is okay, but we have to get the curtains right, friends. Absolutely lovely. It was someone once said that, and I think it's very, very true, that Quakers are unique in their ways. It is a different way. It is a different way to worship than most other Christian religions in England today, as you know, in that respect. No priests, whatever next, people might think, and no set service, or as my brother and I used to call them, identikit services. You kind of come in, sit down, get up, sing a hymn, sit down. Again, have someone at the front tell you that you've been naughty or you sinned, this type of thing, and get up, sing another hymn. Get up, put your money, put your pennies in a box, and go home. And then that seemed to be it for the week. But Quakers are different in that sense, that you are responsible for the meeting. That kind of you type of thing, and you have to do the developmental work within the meeting because there's no one to do like the priest does and all these other things. It is us. We have to be part of that meeting. We have to commit. And in sometimes, if you're an elder, that can be quite a thing to do, especially if you have someone who is going over the top in the meetings. You have to stand up or go across and put your hand on the person's shoulder and say, friend. And if you haven't done that type of thing before, it can be quite frightening, as elders who I know are with me today would agree with that type of thing, because we've had occasionally things like that in central meeting where I, or as being an elder, have had to do that type of thing, or that's central seems to have a few, and I say this gently, eccentrics, but they are lovely people. They are part of their meeting in session. Quakers would not be the same without them. I say that because I've met many in many different meetings who are lovely people. And Quakerism means a lot to them, but they also have their own endearing ways. which sometimes can be hard for others. As it says, there's a bit in a Quaker Faith and Practice which says about that being friends with people, being friendly with others who don't take too much effort to be friendly with is good. But there are some times when you have to be friends with people who you don't get on with too well, or say things which you particularly may not agree with, and to be friends with them and to be understanding and caring and loving towards them sometimes can be a bit of a task. But we accept that because the Spirit has drawn them to us, to our meetings. And if that is the case, then we have to accept them with love. As you probably know, I spent a lot of the time working with children and young people. And for part of that time, I was working with severely disturbed children. So a few of my colleagues where we used to work said, this must be like the proverbial busman's holiday. You go off and do yearly meeting with children and young people on your holidays. And which to me was, no, I go there because, one, basically because I'm a Quaker, and two, because I enjoy it. They were not so hard work as the young people I worked with when I was in my professional life. These were Quaker young people were a joy. Some Quakers at yearly meeting and others said, "Are you sure?" They can be really awkward at times. And I said, well, no, because, I enjoy it because they are young Quakers and because they bring such joy to Quaker meetings that Quaker meetings I think every Quaker meeting should have children in it because it brings a different perspective to your meeting. And I was once amused because I was working with children and young people at Redland meeting, and was most amused when and I brought the children in about 5 minutes too early for the end of the meeting. And a friend came up to me later and said, you brought the children in a bit early, right? And I said, yes. And obviously I won't tell you the person's name because that would be not good. And I said, yes, I brought the children in so you could enjoy having children in at the end of your meeting. And the friend obviously couldn't say, or that was wrong, or don't do it again, because we don't do that to people. Some would like us to, but there you go. Having said I met, it's a big reason why I'm a Quaker is because I meet such remarkable people, and I have come to discover the way of Quakers, which to me is important to life. It's important to me to come to meeting because I thoroughly enjoy it 90% of the time. There are times when I think when a particularly weighty friend is up on their proverbial soapbox, I find it sometimes a little hard, but I can disappear into myself in those times. But as I say, amazing people who I've met in there who the joy of their life, the joy of that spirit within them has given me great enjoyment, has inspired me, and sometimes has made me laugh because they that they are is good in all senses. You know, when I was, and some of them have been extraordinarily strong women in that sense. You know, I've met some Quaker men who have been in that sense, but my inspirations usually have come from strong women within the meeting. When I was working with children and young people, we used to spend weekends planning yearly meeting for a weekend, and we used to go to a meeting house and sleep on the floor and all this lot and plan. Really, it took all that weekend to get all these plans together, to fulfill them, to actually from inception stage really right up to who's doing what and what we need for all this lot type of thing. And within it, doing this, one of the women who I remember, because I lived in Stroud for a while, and I met this woman originally, and her name was called Mary Penny. And Mary Penny was an amazing woman. She, her son, Thomas, who I knew exceedingly well, now works for a newspaper called Bloomberg, and he has given one of the Swarthmore lectures, and I knew Thomas since he was about ye high. But Mary was amazing because she was very strong in her belief and was very strong in the fact of what needs to be done and what needs to be. And she used to produce the cooking. She used to produce the whole of the meals on these meeting houses, which had, kind of basic facilities in the kitchen, but she used to produce all this food, and she was amazing in that sense. But also, she would take one of these smaller age groups, and she was quite strong in that sense, because if Mary said something, and it was always, "Yes, Mary," because she didn't shout, she didn't demand things, she just said it with a voice that was kind of broke to really know things. You could say, "I don't think that's quite right, Mary," and she would go, "Well, it's right because," and it was okay. That wonderful lady. Also, there was another woman there who actually controlled the program. She was paid by Friend's House, and honorarium, as it was called. This was a time when children, young people's groups, there was no one paid by Friend's House as a job. everybody did it kind of in a voluntary state, the children, young people's groups, and it developed quite extensively from there. But Jill was another woman who said, that this group this group hasn't quite finished yet. Why haven't you? The other thing, and this group should be doing, and you had to produce your plan to her. And it was, again, rather as a yes, Mary, was yes, Jill, of course we have. Yes, we will do that very soon. And these were the type of people who didn't lose their temper, didn't say any rude words, but just brought us forward in care and understanding. And that was part of the Quakerism I liked as well. It was, we agree to do things. We agree to work on this thing. If we have disagreements, we express them. As in meetings, if you don't agree, you will speak to people. If you still don't agree, you go to the elders or the supporting friends and say, I have this problem, friends. And that is a good part of us, because all of us are part of this type of thing. We don't go to a priest or a bishop or someone like that and say, this, and they go, this is the working of God, you're wrong. It's discussion that we allow that, and we are a part of that. We are all part of that. As I said earlier, this is what we are. Yeah, we are collective. We believe that what we're going to meeting is the right thing to do, and going to meeting to support others and to support wider society. Because as we all know, our meeting houses are communal places. They're for us on Sunday morning. Yes, which is as it should be. But we are part of that community. And if you look at the all what is going on in central meeting every day, it is booked solidly. Charles Gamble, our warden, has had to say to people, no, you can't have those. I'm afraid we're full up. I'm afraid that this type of thing, and which I think says something about our meetings, that people feel safe and they develop ideas within our meetings, and that gives me great joy when Charles, because I'm Charles's managing friend, and when he comes to me and says, look, I've got a problem. Yeah, this group wants to do, and this group, and then we look at it and we go, yeah, well, that can do that, that do that. But it's the groups that come, it's the groups we are part of, for 3 nights a week in the evenings. The Feed the Homeless come, and 3 different groups come and produce food, which they give to people outside. If you come on a Friday night, outside our meeting house, tables are set out and food is produced. I think once that we fed about 120 people, which is quite remarkable, and this is what we do because we assist in that. This is us, and this is what I love about Quakers. It's the giving. It's the we care for you. You are part of us, and our meeting's good at doing that, because I've known at least a number of people who have come to our meetings on Sunday because they have been part of other meetings during the week, and they found out, yes, sort of, but what do you do? Who are these Quakers who produced these things? Whose building this is? And because I've been asked a couple of times about that when I've been there for other meetings, so they've said, what do you do? Well, blah 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 blah, yeah, and it's that type of thing, and that is what makes me happy, that my meeting is able to produce, able to share our meeting with lots of other different groups who come and care. And we have, I am told by Giles, one of the largest AA meetings within the whole Bristol area. The sad bit about it is that we have to have these meetings, that alcohol has become so much of someone's life that it takes over their life. And without wishing to be naughty, my friend Patsy would know a lot more about that than I, but that's another thing. That's another part of our meeting. That's another part, which I mean that we are coming to a meeting. We're all different. We all come from different places. We're all part of this bigger part of Bristol and wider. That we are not just Quakers. We all look the same and do the same type of thing, but we've all come from other areas of expertise and other areas of life, and we bring that joy of life to local and area meetings. Meeting wouldn't be the same without all these different people expressing their views, I believe. And that's what holds me in Quaker meeting. Another big part of it, which makes my brother roar with laughter, when I explained to him first that I discovered Quaker meeting, and I was going to that type of thing, because my brother is still a man who is along my father's agreement, religion, don't like it, don't do it. And then I said, about it. And he said, hang on a minute. The first times I said to him about that, hang on a minute. I said, what? He said, you mean you're silent for an hour? And I said, yes. And he said, nah, don't believe it. He said, yeah, you talk so much. Your jokes are horrible. And he said, but you chatter on, and you have views, very strong views about something which you could actually sometimes bore for England about. And I said, well, thanks for that. And they said, no, really. He said, you're like mother. He said, you can't keep silent for 5 minutes. And I agreed. My mother couldn't keep silence. 10 minutes, and she was struggling at the bit to actually say things and chatter away about different people and different things, and Mrs. So-and-so down the road, and, such things like that. And I said, this Quaker meeting has been a good discipline for me. So I sit, and I'm sitting in silence. And of course, if I feel as it was told to me by other Quakers, that if you really, it's a poster which we have, which I think is bleeding good. The poster says there are only two ways you can disrupt this meeting. One, if you speak, and as we know, speak is sometimes from the ego rather than from the spirit. And two, if you don't speak, if the spirit says to you, and we've all had it, I know, get up, stand up, say that, and you don't, it will continue to harass you. Sometimes you don't, but sometimes you feel you have to get up and say, friends, or say what is in your heart at that moment. I know it's from the first times I did it, and you might find this surprisingly, I did a bit of quakering because I felt, why would you want to listen to me? What have I got to say, which is so important? And older friends have said to me at those times when I said this, no, it is that you will know when that happens to you, and you have to follow the leadings of the spirit in that. And I thought, yeah, but we've all known people who stand up and speak, and that maybe, but should I condemn other people for speaking? I don't think so. But we have, as you would know, and older friends would know, because it was a delightful thing. It was called the Daffodil Ministry. We have all heard that one, haven't we? Well, older friends have. And I see a shrug, from that type of thing, And it's usually an older friend who will get up and say, while I was on the way to meeting today, I saw the flowers or the daffodils or something like that. And I thought, blah. And I thought, yeah, that is lovely. That is someone who's saying, that is how I feel. But it got known for many, many years as the Daffodil Ministries. Lovely, but naughty of me, isn't it, really? But there you go. One last thing, which, and then I will leave it off for friends to have other words made. Hopefully, you can tell me about those things that happened to you. Was when I was working with young people, I asked them to draw a picture, because small children love drawing pictures to say things. Draw a picture of what they thought life would be like when they were adults. What would Quakers be like then?
Yeah.
And I wandered around looking at all these pictures. They're lovely pictures of different things that were going on. I got a lot of them, but one little boy drew this picture, a lot of purple colours and all this lot of people. I thought it might be people sitting around in a circle, but what's a purple colour in all this lot? So I gently asked him about what this picture was like, and I said, if you were able, how would you title this picture? And he looked up at me as if I was slightly strange. And why didn't I understand it? But of course, his picture was this title. And he said, the title is Yearly Meeting in Alpha Centauri, which I thought was lovely. You know, the Quakers going out into space and colonizing all other places, and this was part of it. That we've gone out, we've reached Alpha Centauri and have and have meeting there. Yeah,
Yeah.
joy of life. Anyway, as it's 11:47, and I've been going on and on and on for a little while. I thought perhaps I can encourage you friends here to say about the sort of things that you found enjoyable in meeting, or the wonderful people you've met, or anything like that.
Thank you ever so much, Bray. It's been really interesting. Thank you. Who would like to say something first?
Angela, go for it.
Well, yeah, I just want to say very briefly about my first encounter with Quakers. No, I was born April 1939. My brother Keith was born April 1949. And when he was 5, 6, 7, he had severe learning difficulties. There was no provision in Ashford in Kent for him at all. But then suddenly my mum said, Keith's going to playgroup. And guess who ran the playgroup? Ashford Quakers. And one of the first things Ashford Quakers did was to teach my brother Keith how to use the toilet, because Keith remember, in those days, nappies were old rags that had to be washed. So my mum and my dad's mum, who lived with us, were having to wash, with a mangle, doing it by hand. So thank you, Ashford Quakers, for running a playgroup that taught my brother Keith, who incidentally, in spite of his learning difficulties, lived to be the age of 54 because of the love he had from my parents and everybody else. So thank you, Quakers, Ashford, Kent, in about 1954 or 5.
That's a lovely thing to hear, Angela. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, when I first came to Quakers, I think the first thing I felt was, I came to a Quaker meeting without having prepared myself intellectually in any way. So the first thing I felt was, it felt very safe, and comfortable and happy. And I thought that was wonderful. And I think that is what struck me first. And then after that, I was also impressed at the time, the friend that took me to the meeting, I had gone initially because I very much admired her and the way that she dealt with all sorts of problems. I thought, gosh, and then I heard she was a Quaker. And then she said, would you like to come to a meeting? And I thought, well, maybe I'll be like her if I go to a Quaker meeting. And I don't know if I am more like her or not. She's not living in this area anymore. But that was how I came to it rather than intellectually. I think if I'd approached intellectually, I would have been slightly frightened away because my parents were strict Methodists, and I was not happy with that at all. And I think, I don't know, I think I would have been afraid that it was going to be like that. But of course, it isn't even remotely like what it was with strict Methodists and sitting in pews and wearing our best clothes and not being able to speak. And, this is as a child, it wasn't a happy and joyful experience at all. So I think it's sad that we don't at Central have we don't have any children at the moment, do we? but it would be nice if we did. I did agree with you about that. It's wonderful to actually. It's just the way that children recognise spirituality, but they express it in a completely different way. I'm talking too much. Who'd like to speak?
Hello, may I?
Judith.
Yes, I was very impressed. The thing I'm so impressed about, listening to everything, is in a central meeting, you're very diverse. You have so many different types of people who come in, and you welcome them all, and you don't mind who they are. They're all welcome, and you even on a Friday night, for instance, you can feed 120 people just out of the kitchen, because that's what you do every Friday, and I think 2 or 3 times a week you do it. And
Yeah.
I think perhaps at Frenchy we could learn to be a bit more diverse ourselves. I think we do tend to think of ourselves as rather parochial. We try not to, but I think we are. And I think it's partly because of where we live, which is more out in the sticks, as it were.
Mm.
But it's good to go into central meeting now and again and see the difference.
Yeah, part of that is, I think, because Central is in the middle of the city, we get a lot more in that sense. But also we get a few problems with that.
Yeah.
One of them being at least twice Charles and his wife have been physically threatened, and it is only the fact that Charles, being quite a large chap, although he's a large chap, though he's a pussycat, really, he's a very soft man, but his wife Festina is a little more no, you can't do that type of thing here, type of thing, but they had to once lock themselves in the meeting house because someone was threatening them. But that is one of the very few downsides we have in Central. Mostly it's we care and look after people, and we understand we are in the centre, so we will get lots of different disparate types of people come and go.
Was that at night that when they had this problem with someone trying to threaten them? Was.
I mean, on the positive side, we do get, the diversity is really great. We've got people who come into our Central Quaker meeting who certainly wouldn't go into an ordinary church, or indeed anywhere even remotely formal. They come in because it feels safe. It feels like nobody's going to grab them and shove a Bible into their hand, or indeed anything else except maybe a sandwich. But the diversity is very positive. We've got so many young people are coming now. We've got about, is it 20? Young people quite recently, and they're all very much into peace, for example, as of course as we are, but they're very active about it, and it's exciting. It's heartwarming, I find, anyway.
Yes, we have some posters which they designed, banners, sorry, which they designed and went, when they were demonstrating, at the U-Bit factory, a weapons factory, which Quakers have been demonstrating outside there for quite a time now. And, these new young people have produced a few banners, which are stored at our meeting house, but don't tell anybody else they're stored there.
Ray, clearly you have a long association with Quakers, and I'm aware that you not only do things locally, but are quite involved, if I've understood correctly, at Britain yearly meeting level. I'd love to hear a little bit about those other committees and groups that you belong to, because I think it's a fine example of other ways of being a Quaker and making a contribution to society.
I've been part of other groups. Mainly it was the children and young people's groups yearly meeting where we done things, I suppose, with the children. But a few of them have been. I was once part of a group which was what did they call themselves those days? But they were dealing with camps where you would have people go abroad and do kind of camps there, repairing a building or doing a garden or renovation work and that type of thing. And that was quite fun because then you meet kind of really Quakers from different countries, and but the only problem about that was they had to speak English because I don't speak any other foreign language. So, but it was the development thing. It was coming together as Quakers from different countries and doing something which was positive, doing, as I say, building or something like this. One of them was in Cologne in Germany, where a group of us were renovating an old fire station, and in the papers I got, and it was called the Vierwocht, and I thought, what the heck's that? What do they do there? Type of thing. And obviously, as it translated, was the fire station. And it was to be used as a community centre for the Turkish group within Cologne, because they were quite large there at that moment, and they had nowhere really to come together as a group. So that was quite a fun thing, and actually meeting other people at yearly meeting and meeting other friends I'd done other things with, and sometimes meeting children who had grown up that I dealt with, that I worked with as young people, who were adults there. And 2 years ago, I was at yearly meeting, and someone tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and the bloke said, "Hello, Ray." And I said, "Hello, friend." And he said, "You probably don't remember me, do you?" And I said, "I'm afraid not." And he said, "I was in one of the young children, young people groups which you ran many, many years ago. And now that my son is at one of the groups here, and that's why I'm here at yearly meeting." And I thought, oh. And it was the fact that he remembered me, and he told me about the sort of things we did there. And because there was, it must have been, as I did children and young people at yearly meeting for about 20 years. So to remember each child would have been a bit awkward. But he remembered it, and to him it was a great thing because he came back and back, and being at yearly meet, being at children and young people's group was a big thing within his life. And I thought, that to me makes my day, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were other groups. There were different groups. There were campaigning groups, which I was part of. But yeah, don't do so much nowadays. But there you go. Yeah. But I would actually say, friends, if you can get to go to yearly meeting, do. It's a really different experience. It really is. To see all these, to see yearly meeting in session in the big meeting room,
Yeah.
which can be quite, well, all these people here, how do they choose which person to speak? And because, they stand up and, it goes, so the clerk will say, friend in the west aisle, to level 5 or something. There you go. Okay, but do go if you can. It's jolly good. David.
Thank you, Bray. You're most generous today, but telling us about your Quakerism and your life. It's been really great. I thought I'd better make sure before people start leaving, however, to tell you really must come next week, please. Eddie Nasel, I do hope that's how you pronounce his second name. He's going to talk about our commitment to peace and recent opportunities to speak truth to power. And that's going to be Eddie next week. Eddie from
Not Oliver.
Warfield meeting. Sorry.
I've got Oliver I've got Ollie next week.
Oh, that's next month.
That's next.
He's the second one in November, I think.
Righto. I will. Yes. Well,
Have I got it wrong on anyone else's?
Yeah,
no.
I had Oliver Wheeler in my diary for some reason. Maybe it was
weird. I might have. The thing is, I took a very greedy, long summer break. And the trouble with doing things like that, especially at 82, is you can get a bit mixed at the end if you're not careful. The one that I sent out most recently, though, where is it? I should have a copy to hand.
I've definitely got Eddie next week. I think there were two emails went round, and
yes,
the second
it's
one
changing,
had some different dates, I think.
Okay. Yes, what I sent out last
last changes.
I've got, apart from Ray this week, I've got Eddie next week. October the 17th is we're going to be on an online session with Zambia. And then Helen Lister is filling in because we had a cancellation. So Helen is going to be talking on October the 24th about her work as a Quaker in prison. And finally, Gordon Purdy is giving a talk called Seeds. And then we have got Oliver then next month. I hope Oliver himself doesn't think he's next week. I'm feeling a bit worried about this. I really apologise if I got it wrong. But the one I just read out is what's.
We'll speak to him on Sunday.
Sorry?
We'll speak to him on Sunday.
Yes. I think maybe people will be speaking to me on Sunday from the sound of it.
Hattie.
I don't think it's Helen Lister. I think her first name is Heather.
Heather, I think you're right. Yes, I have gone and put Helen. It's Heather.
It's just a typo. Yeah, but at least, we know it's Heather now. But yeah. I was surprised to see that. Yeah. Thank you.
David.
I think it could be coming close to time to retire, actually, looking at the number of mistakes I've made. But anyway, I do apologise. And
David.
Well, whatever it is, we'll find out next week. But just for now, I thought I'd show you what it might look like at yearly meeting on Alpha Centauri, which Ray mentioned.
Well done, my friend. Well done.
ChatGPT's version of it doesn't show inside the meeting room, so you can use your own creative thinking for what we look like and who else is gathered. So there you are. Just a little laugh to finish the meeting with. Thanks for a lovely session, Ray.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, thank you for that. That's great fun. Thank you.
Thank you, friends, and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.